What is going on, world? What's up, YouTube? It's Zero here. Today I'm bringing you guys a brand new episode of the 8 Below Show. Welcome everyone to 8 Below. Thanks so much for being here, everyone, for episode 5 of the 8 Below Show. And in today's show, guys, we are going to be talking all about Blizzcon 2019, the highs, the lows, and some of the things in between. And I'm excited to get into it, guys, because this has been a huge topic of discussion around a number of communities, whether we are talking about Diablo community, the Overwatch community, the StarCraft community. We're going to be talking about a lot of the different things that were, of course, announced at BlizzCon 2019, but some of the things that really they strayed away from as far as really putting a spotlight on some of these games. And so we're going to talk about that here today. So guys, without further ado, I want to talk about my thoughts on BlizzCon 2019 as a whole, as a show, as a spectator of BlizzCon 2019. What were kind of like my initial thoughts on BlizzCon? And I know there's been a lot of people, lots of people have come out, and other creators and such saying, kind of giving their thoughts on BlizzCon 2019. And I'm going to say this, guys. BlizzCon 2019, from a viewership perspective and just kind of entertainment value and just kind of an hype value, I guess you could say, this was one of the best BlizzCons I've witnessed or watched, because I've never actually attended BlizzCon, in person, but actually being able to watch everything that got announced this year was quite remarkable. It felt like there were so many highs and lows, though, with BlizzCon 2019. So it was like kind of mixed emotions. But overall, as far as what was announced, man, the hype value was absolutely huge, and they did a really good job with that. And so I thought that was a very big high point for BlizzCon 2019 was all the stuff that got announced, which we'll talk about here on the show, which, of course, guys, that being like Overwatch 2, Diablo 4, World of Warcraft, Shadowlands, so on and so forth. I mean, there was just a number of different games that, number one, got announced, which they haven't done this in years, it's felt like, that there has been multiple games getting announced at once. Like, it has been a long time since I remember seeing or, hearing them even announcing more than one thing usually each year. And each year they usually aren't announcing like multiple big, some of their big IPs. A lot of times it's just like expansion packs or, a couple of new heroes for one of their games like Overwatch or something. Generally speaking, it's usually nothing more than maybe a new expansion each year. And over the past few BlizzCons, man, they really haven't announced much at all besides, like I said, some heroes in Overwatch and, little updates here and there, co-op commanders for StarCraft 2. So really, it's been kind of BlizzCon for the past few years just really hasn't met the expectations of years past, but this year was a change in that. I hope that we see a continuation of this moving forward in certain ways. Of course, like I'm saying, talking about some of the announcements that they made, I would love to see a continuation of that, like more and more announcements over time. I think that would be absolutely great to see more and more games being announced, whether those are new IPs or current IPs that Activision Blizzard owns. I think that would be really great. But I think what happened, though, with BlizzCon 2019, they and when I say they, I mean Activision Blizzard, they spent so much time trying to rewrite the ship in the right direction, right? When from last year, when they announced Diablo Immortal right off the bat as their, mobile game, instead of announcing that alongside of Diablo 4, they waited a whole year. So they knew they had to bang that out of the park right off the gate. They had to announce Diablo 4. And I think that was a very smart thing for them to do. So everyone's now forgiving them for, the Diablo Immortal, controversy that was last year. On top of that, they, of course, announce Overwatch 2, which I think is very interesting. I'm not sure what I really think about them doing in Overwatch 2 as of yet, but we'll talk about that here shortly. And then, of course, guys, World of Warcraft Shadowlands, which World of Warcraft's a game that I've played here and there, but I never really got into it as much as some people have. And so I'm not fully invested in that community, but from what I saw of it, it seems pretty cool. The things that really bothered me, though, guys, were some of the ways in which they treated the esports side. Because what it has felt like in the past is maybe they don't announce anything at BlizzCon, but at least the production value and the games in which there are, whether we're talking Hearthstone or, in the past Heroes of the Storm, StarCraft 2, Overwatch, World of Warcraft Arena, so on and so forth, all these different games that have, tournaments going on around them during BlizzCon, which is usually the world championships of some of these games. Usually that's what the strength is of BlizzCon when they don't really announce anything. Well, this year, it would have been a perfect BlizzCon had everything gone correctly, of course, with the announcements, which those went very well. And then also with the esports side of things, which I thought went pretty poorly overall. And we'll talk about that here today, because really I could talk at length about the treatment of Overwatch, but we're going to mainly talk about StarCraft here, guys, because StarCraft, it felt like, because the thing about it was that the Overwatch World Cup kind of, not that the production value wasn't good, but it just felt like when Blizzard decided to put a recap video together, they didn't show StarCraft, and they really didn't show anything on Overwatch either. They didn't really show much of anything around the esports side of just these tournaments. Now, they, of course, showed Hearthstone, because we had the first female champion in Hearthstone, which was absolutely awesome. But at the same time, I felt like they really pushed StarCraft as well as Overwatch kind of to the side, which is very strange to me, because Overwatch is such a huge IP now for Activision Blizzard. But I want to talk more so about the StarCraft treatment, because Overwatch 2 did get announced. So there was a lot of emphasis on Overwatch over the weekend, even though the Overwatch World Cup kind of, could have done better. They could have done a little bit better, as far as that's concerned. But I thought that really what we need to talk about is StarCraft and the StarCraft treatment and what this could mean. What does it mean? Because that is a huge topic of conversation right now in the communities. And so that was probably my biggest issue with BlizzCon 2019. And there's always issues, guys. Everyone has issues. Everyone has complaints, things that they loved about, BlizzCon, things that they didn't like so much. And I think the StarCraft treatment was certainly one of those things. It was kind of like a twofold thing for me, because on the YouTube channel up to this point, guys, you guys have seen I've made a lot of StarCraft content on this YouTube channel. So StarCraft is something that's very close to my heart, and I really do enjoy StarCraft quite a bit. So it was really hard for me when the treatment that they have. But I have a little bit of a different take on the StarCraft treatment that kind of happened over the weekend as to what it may mean for the future of StarCraft. Lots of people think it's a grim ordeal, a very, bad thing that's going to be happening to StarCraft. Like, are they going to be completely dropping the WCS? Are they going to be, completely stopping all support of StarCraft? It's a big topic of conversation. I want to give you guys my thoughts on that. So let's talk about it. So guys, I think it's really important that when we talk about StarCraft and its treatment, we also talk about a number of other things, like the announcements that happened at BlizzCon regarding StarCraft 2, so on and so forth, just pretty much everything. I also want to mention, I think it's very important, guys, that we talk about some of the things that were brought up on the Pylon show, which is, of course, for those of you who don't know, pretty much the official podcast of StarCraft 2. It's a community podcast, obviously, that's hosted by Artosis on his YouTube channel as well as his Twitch channel. And he has guests that come on there and they talk about StarCraft, and that's all they talk about: StarCraft, StarCraft 2, and just kind of the things happening within the world of esports, or the WCS. And it's a very, you can just tell, a very passionate type of show that these guys are, kind of giving their honest takes on things. And so I want to talk about that as well, because they discussed the StarCraft treatment at BlizzCon 2019. I definitely want to bring that up as well. So to start here, guys, something that I've been preaching on the YouTube channel for a while now is a StarCraft 3. And I will continue to be trying to push a StarCraft 3 a StarCraft 3 RTS game to come out, not a StarCraft 3 FPS shooter. I mean, obviously, guys, an FPS game for StarCraft would be cool, but obviously, I think it needs to be completely separate from the RTS games that come out. So, like a StarCraft Ghost or, whatever it might be called, it can be its own thing. I would love to see that as well. But really, I believe that a StarCraft 3 needs to happen for a number of reasons, guys. The biggest ones, and a lot of people don't like to talk about it, but the match-fixing scandal that happened early on in StarCraft 2, obviously, guys, that put a real sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, whether that be actual esports organizations pulling out of, StarCraft, as well as advertisers, so on and so forth. Just a lot of issues that arose from the match-fixing scandal. And so I think that, a StarCraft 3, not just the match-fixing scandal, but other issues that StarCraft 2 has had in the past. I believe that even though that StarCraft 2 is it's trending in a decent, direction, I do think, like what Artosis said on the Pylon show, that there needs to be more of a vision for the future of StarCraft. And I agree 100% with that. I believe that there does need to be some sort of vision for the future of this game and this franchise that a lot of us absolutely love. And so that being said, guys, it really comes down to a StarCraft 3, I believe, needs to be announced, as far as an RTS goes, to continue it, because Blizzard and Activision, they own the RTS genre at this point. So why not continue making, StarCraft games? I just don't see, it's like, why not? I know it doesn't bring in the most money, but, I believe that it could, if you just, make another one, maybe, doing, different monetization, tactics and such, which they already do in their other games. It's like, why can't they do that for StarCraft? And I mean, obviously none of us really like microtransactions that much. Obviously, we like the ones that maybe are helping the WCS, circuit, or, whether that be like the war chest or something else. But, microtransactions are not something that have been like a really big ordeal in StarCraft up to this point. And so that's probably part of the reason why it doesn't make it quite as much money. But I can tell you that there is definitely a solid fan base in StarCraft. I mean, there is just absolutely no doubt about it. There is a lot of players in StarCraft, a lot more than you might think, especially with the game going free to play. I think that's also has helped out StarCraft significantly. But I just believe, guys, that StarCraft 3 would build so much hype. And I was really hoping that StarCraft 3 was going to be announced at BlizzCon of 2019. And unfortunately, it wasn't. It wasn't in their as a plan. It wasn't, something that they had, definitely, they may not be working on. They may be working on a StarCraft 3, but at the same time, they were planning on Overwatch 2, Diablo 4, and World of Warcraft, Shadowlands, to announce this year. Now, maybe next year we might get a StarCraft 3. Who knows? That'll lead me to kind of one of the reasons why I believe the StarCraft treatment wasn't necessarily that good. It very well might be, guys, that they actually are planning on, the future of StarCraft, but they just don't have much to show right now. They didn't want people's focus to go away from Diablo and Overwatch and World of Warcraft Shadowlands to, like a StarCraft 3. Maybe StarCraft 3 is something that they're going to show us next year at BlizzCon, because there might not be very much else to announce there. So I think that next BlizzCon, there's a very good chance that StarCraft will own next BlizzCon, will own BlizzCon 2020. I really believe that. Now, that doesn't excuse what they're doing as far as the esports side is concerned, whether we're talking with Overwatch or with StarCraft. So let's talk about that here in a little bit more detail. Guys, they really, Blizzard and Activision, when they put together the recap video, as I alluded to earlier, they never showed, any real snippets of the WCS, the tournament that was, the championship of StarCraft 2. And the same can be said for really Overwatch. They didn't really show much, like very many clips. It doesn't take that much to really put those clips in and just, show everyone, hey, this is like what happened this weekend. A very strange, I don't know why they decided not to do it in that way, because I thought that some of the games were very good in the WCS games. Now I know on the Pylon show you had Artosis, Maynard, and Nathanius. They all were talking about, the games, and they didn't think that they were some of them weren't that great. There were other games were good, like Classic versus Rogue was really great, and I agree with that 100%. I think that, there's something about there being an entire weekend of championships. It's not, of games, I should say, instead of there only being one day. And I think that there's something about that it just ends up, it really ends up being a long day of StarCraft. These players are kind of getting tired. The casters, the same thing. It was so late here that I wasn't even able to finish the entire, all of the games between Dark and Raynor because it was just so long. It was really late on my side of where I am. I'm on the eastern, part of the United States, and it was getting really late when those games were being played. It's unfortunate, I think, that it was cut down so much. All you really saw, though, was the absolute and utter dominance of Dark. And guys, this is going to be another conversation for another day, but man, we may have to pump the brakes on Cyril a little bit, and here's why. I do think, guys, that Cyril is, he's trying to become the greatest all time, right? And I've always said that Life is the guy to beat. He's the guy that you got to catch. Well, here's the thing. While this has all been going on, Cyril's been, gaining on Life. And I had said that Cyril would be known as the greatest of all time if he won BlizzCon 2019. He did not. I still think that he's probably the best player in the world, but at the same time, Dark is making a real case. This is a guy who's been to 2 BlizzCons, or has made it to the BlizzCon finals of the WCS at BlizzCon twice. Lost the first time, I believe, was to Beyond in 2016, and then this year, of course, he wins and beats Raynor. What happens if Dark wins it next year, or wins it at some point in the future? This is a guy who's been very consistent with winning championships. He is definitely, at this point, in the conversation for greatest of all time. There is no debate about it, in my opinion. You have got now a 3-way kind of 3 players that very well could become the greatest of all time. You've got Life, who I believe that his legacy is completely tarnished because of the match-fixing scandal that happened. So that is something that you have to take into consideration as far as when, we're talking about the greatest. Cyril, of course, this guy, still is, pretty, young in his career in StarCraft. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. And then now Dark, who's been around the scene for a long time, been to 2 world championships, has won one of them, lost one of them. It's going to be very interesting to see can someone win 2 BlizzCons? Because that's the World Championship. That is the Super Bowl. That is the NBA Finals, or the Stanley Cup, the World Series of StarCraft. So that's the biggest stage. And if you win those, man, those are something that you'll be remembered forever with, right? So I think that Dark now has definitely put himself in that conversation as one of the greatest, because he's been to 2 world championships in BlizzCon. And so I definitely want to have, I would love to have a conversation with you guys about all that. But as far as the StarCraft treatment, guys, even though, it was very much so a bummer that they did not mention Dark winning the championship, really, or at least showing him raising the trophy during that, BlizzCon recap video. It really was kind of a bummer that they just did not show much of StarCraft. Didn't really seem to care. They put it at one day. All the entire tournament was in one day, and so I feel like that was kind of not necessarily a terrible thing, but at the same time, it just feels like, why couldn't you just have made it 2 days? or, the entire weekend or whatever. I mean, it would have been really nice, I think, to have a, like kind of structured like it was in the past. I understand that they were sharing the arena with Overwatch, but it'll be interesting to see where that kind of goes in the future. But I'll tell you what, there was a couple, Maynard on the Pylon show had some strong words for Blizzard after what was really he just absolutely was hellacious with what he was saying about, StarCraft 2 and its treatment at BlizzCon. And so I gotta say, guys, you should definitely watch the Pylon show. If you guys don't already watch the Pylon show, I would certainly recommend watching it. It's a great show, guys. But Maynard really brought up some very good points, and he really should be, and I'm just going to say this, Maynard should be the face of StarCraft, period. The face of StarCraft, I mean StarCraft 2, if you want to just call it StarCraft 2, just make it StarCraft 2 at least. But this is a guy who is so passionate about StarCraft. I mean, his passion is infectious. It really is. And I think he loves StarCraft. I mean, he is convinced that it is the greatest game on Earth, and he just wants to see the continued success of it. And I would love to have Maynard on the 8 Below show, kind of giving some more of his thoughts about not just the StarCraft treatment and situation, but I want us to start talking more about StarCraft 3. Because I want a StarCraft 3 real-time strategy game echoed into existence. I think it's people like Maynard and people in the community. It's based on us to do our part in making that happen, seeing the continuation of StarCraft. Because, look, people would be concerned with the StarCraft 3. They'd be like, oh, it's not going to be as good as StarCraft 1. It's probably not going to be as good as StarCraft 2. What's it going to look like? Everyone would be very concerned. And I think that's a problem with the StarCraft community. They're very complacent with where we're at right now instead of trying to be the voice of change and making things happen in the community. Not so much just based around StarCraft 2. Basically, everything with StarCraft 2 has already been done. I mean, unless you wanted to go the path of like League of Legends, where they're not going to make a League of Legends 2. Maybe StarCraft 2 is kind of like they're thinking maybe it's going to be like League, where it's just going to be a much smaller IP and they're just going to kind of support it over the years and give minimal investment to it. I just believe a StarCraft 3 would not only mean a guaranteed, pretty much a guaranteed continuation of the story, the lore of StarCraft, but also the continuation maybe 5 to 10 years in the future of StarCraft WCS and tournaments and such. It just makes so much sense to me, at least, but obviously I'm one person in the community, and I would love to get other people's opinions on that. But Maynard, guys, made some very good points about, the StarCraft treatment and how it's just ridiculous that they aren't even, they basically aren't even showing that, aren't even almost acknowledging that it exists in those recap videos. And that was really what, was making Maynard really upset, was just not being able to see, in those recap videos, StarCraft even mentioned. And, even at StarCraft as a whole, they didn't really announce much other than like a new co-op commander. So it's like, man, that's all we get every year is a new co-op commander. It's like, come on, like, let's get some new, some new things. Like, if you're not playing on a StarCraft 3, at least do like a StarCraft mobile game for us. At least do a StarCraft first-person shooter game, which is, they've done 2 of them at this point, and they both have been canceled. Do something. And I would love to see the continuation of the real-time strategy genre within StarCraft, as well as maybe a first-person shooter StarCraft game. That would be absolutely awesome to me. But I would love to hear from you guys, and I want to personally invite Maynard, or really anyone, from the StarCraft community that has a real opinion about this, about StarCraft 3 and the continuation of the StarCraft franchise. I would love to invite those of you onto the show to get some of your guys' opinion on it. And so, that all being said, guys, that kind of leads me into the next thing, which is more so Overwatch 2. Let's talk about Overwatch 2, guys, and kind of maybe see what the future holds for this game as well. So let's talk about it. Okay, guys, so let's talk about Overwatch 2, the sequel, and everything that we know about Overwatch 2 up to this point. This article, guys, was written, by a PC Gamer, or I should say it was written by Morgan Park of a PC Gamer. and it's everything that we know about it. I read this article. I thought it was a pretty good article, guys. It tells us all the details on Overwatch 2's new story and heroes, co-op mode, shared multiplayer, and more. And I will say this, guys, that before I even really get into this article, I do think that Overwatch 2, from the actual, announcement trailer that they showed, I thought it looked pretty cool. I mean, I've never been really into Overwatch. I just kind of always thought that watching it as from a esports perspective and spectator, it just seems like such a cluster. I do respect, though, a lot of like the different abilities, the different heroes. It's just a really cool game. It's bright. It's kind of exciting at times. But, I never really got into it myself that much, or at least I was just never really good at the game. I've tried it, and I'm really not good at the game, so that's probably part of the reason why I'm just not super into it. But that being said, guys, give you a little bit of some context as far as my background with Overwatch. I will say this, they really were trying to, in that trailer, it felt like they were really trying to kind of melt your heart a little bit at times while you're watching. It seems like, the monkey is about to like sacrifice himself for his friends and stuff. And so they really were kind of toying with like emotions in this trailer very, early on. I mean, obviously it was very interesting. But that being said, I think that gives you a little bit some context as far as my thoughts on the trailer. I thought it was pretty good, emotional at times, and at times it was pretty exciting as well. I'm excited to see kind of, further like reveals of the game though in the future. But Overwatch 2 is real. After a year of convincing leaks and reports, we finally got a look at Overwatch-the Sequel. It's got new maps, heroes, and most interestingly, a story mode expanding on the narrative foundation Blizzard's been building with its character cinematics. From what we've seen so far, Overwatch 2 is not your average sequel. Its most unusual feature is that some new additions like new heroes and multiplayer modes will also come to Overwatch 1 at no additional charge. The two games will continue to coexist as one big PvP experience, while Overwatch 2's other new additions are exclusive to the sequel. We've dug through all the details Blizzard's dished out so far to figure out how that's going to work. Here's everything we know about Overwatch 2 after its announcement at Blizzcon 2019. So really quick though, guys, one thing I do want to mention is the PvP aspect obviously is a lot of fun, but I think that the idea that they are going to be doing a campaign for Overwatch is very intriguing to me and something that I'm interested in, because what I like about games and if I'm going to buy a game, I like full packages. I like buying a game where it is a campaign, a multiplayer, and then like different co-op modes. That is something that really intrigues me to want to buy a game, and having that in Overwatch 2 is kind of cool. And I know that they really showed like mostly what I believe is the campaign, and they were kind of showing different, definitely certain emotions and such with the different characters in Overwatch 2. That's really what they were showing, was mainly the campaign. At least that's what it felt like as far as what they showed so far. But nonetheless, I'm excited to see a campaign in Overwatch's universe. I think that would be absolutely awesome. But when is Overwatch 2's release date? At BlizzCon 2019, Blizzard said that Overwatch 2 is still early in development and isn't sure when it will release. I don't know. I have no idea, game director Jeff Kaplan said at the reveal panel. Like, just let us make it great. That's what we care about more than anything. We don't have a date in mind. Following the reveal, Blizzard is going dark on Overwatch 2 until they have more to share. So that's going to be interesting. Most likely, we probably won't see Overwatch 2 for a couple of years, I would assume. We'll probably hear more about it probably at BlizzCon 2020. Maybe something, that they'll just kind of show everyone. The same thing can be said with Diablo 4. But what is Overwatch 2 exactly? Well, it's a sequel to Overwatch, but not in the way that we usually think about sequels. By the sound of it, Overwatch 2 is more like a big expansion that focuses primarily on PvE missions. These missions appear to build off the Overwatch archive seasonal events from the past few years. The new story missions will likely have more story, dialogue, and cutscenes than the highly repeatable limited time events. We go over those in greater detail below. The new 8-minute cinematic feels like a dramatic declaration of a new Overwatch age. It feels different from the disjointed hero cinematics that we've gotten used to over the years. Tying together multiple characters into a focused story, Overwatch 2 will have a story that moves forward, and this is the kickoff. So gameplay trailer, they showed the gameplay trailer, guys. It says Overwatch 2 PvE missions are divided between story and hero missions, which I think is very interesting. I don't know how I am going to like that much, but here's what they say about it. Overwatch 2 is going all in on PvE. The game's main campaign, made up of cooperative story missions, we'll see new and old Overwatch heroes teaming up against the Null Sector, the robotic army players fought in the Uprising event from the original game. According to Blizzard, players will team up as different sets of heroes and fight to defend the world from the omnic forces of Null Sector, uncover the motives behind the robotic army's attacks, and come face to face with rising new threats around the globe. Story missions will also have item pickups that can slightly modify a hero's playstyle. The three shown were an HP generator, a corrosive grenade, and a barrier shield, similar to Winston's. Any hero in the mode can peck these up and use them at will, but they don't carry over between missions. On the other end of PvE are hero missions separate from the story that are designed to be highly replayable. In this mode, players can level up heroes and unlock customization options that modify their abilities. In the gameplay trailer, we see a modified Tracer build that chains her pulse bomb explosion to multiple enemies. As far as we can tell, these ability modifiers are exclusive to PvE and won't have any impact on PvP. So it's very interesting. I think I'm going to like it overall, having their a story missions as well as hero missions. I think I would like something like that, where one thing is, way more, replayable, where the other you just kind of play one time and that's about it. They've got, a bunch of Overwatch 2 gameplay that they did, have shown off. People were kind of giving their impressions on the game as well. I gotta say, guys, I mean, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Overwatch, I'm excited for the Overwatch community because we're just seeing the continuation of Overwatch, and I think them adding story elements to the game is a huge kind of upgrade, I guess you could say, moving forward. Sojourn is one of Overwatch 2's multiplayer new heroes. As she looks cool. We don't know much about Sojourn yet, other than that she's Canadian, but her build and intimidating gun arm suggests that she's a damage-focused hero. In her highlight intro seen in the gameplay trailer, she also slides into a super jump, so mobility might be her thing. Blizzard is being coy about how many other new heroes we can expect at the launch of Overwatch 2. Echo, the elegant flying robot first introduced in McCree's cinematic, is featured heavily Overwatch 2 reveal, but it's unclear if they will be a playable hero. Expect this to be cleared up as we learn more about the game in the coming weeks. So, I mean, guys, so much. I mean, there is just so, much about Overwatch 2, the Overwatch 2 push mode. I mean, there's, a lot of the new PvP maps that they at least showed us looked really, really great. I'm excited about Overwatch 2. I really am. I mean, I didn't think I would actually be that excited about a sequel to Overwatch. The thing about it to me is more so, my question would be about the esports side of Overwatch. How is that going to affect things as far as Overwatch is concerned? Will that be, changing things up a little bit? I just kind of wonder how that's going to change from game to game. I was kind of thinking Overwatch was going to be its own thing for pretty much forever, and they would just kind of do maybe expansions and such. I didn't actually think that they would do an Overwatch 2 and then maybe an Overwatch 3 down the road. It's hard to say, but that being said, I am excited about Overwatch 2 as a whole mainly because of the campaign, the story missions, the hero missions. That's what I'm really excited about. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section below. And the next thing, guys, that I'd like to talk about is Diablo 4. So let's talk about it. Alrighty, guys, so now we're going to talk about everything that we know about Diablo 4, and I'm really excited about this one, guys, because Diablo 4 was probably the most exciting announcement for me at BlizzCon 2019. Just the trailer looked so good, and the graphics look unbelievable. I mean, Blizzard still owns it when it comes to graphics. I mean, let's be real with ourselves. The graphics were absolutely incredible for Diablo 4. And guys, for someone who's not as familiar with Diablo, I've played Diablo in the past, but I pretty much started with Diablo 3. I never even played the first two, and so I'm kind of still somewhat new to the franchise. I'm excited to see where they're going with this Diablo 4. So let's talk about that. So, guys, this article was once again written by PC Gamer, by a guy named Tom Senior. Diablo 4 has finally been revealed. Jump in to learn all about Hell's darker new direction. And man, talk about dark, man. This was a dark game, or at least trailer that we got. But man, it seemed really, really intense, and I'm pretty excited about it. But after years of will they, won't they, Blizzard has finally revealed Diablo 4 at BlizzCon 2019. It's a return to the darker look of early Diablo, with even more blasphemy and profane imagery per capita. Take a look at all the new trailers and info below. I'm sure you guys, most of you have probably seen the trailer. You definitely should if you have not. But this was one hell of a way to announce Diablo 4. The cinematic is gorgeous and morbid, exactly as Diablo should be. Imagine how much better off the world would be without treasure hunters accidentally resurrecting the ultimate evil. So, in the trailer, it did seem like, to an extent, it seemed like, yeah, there was like these treasure hunters, and they accidentally like resurrect, the mother, or the All Mother or something. I'm not exactly sure what she's called, but I mean, I'm just gonna call her the Queen, because my God, she looked absolutely terrifying in that cinematic. But that being said, Diablo 4 is looking smooth. The game's darker art style stands out, though we've yet to see how busy the game will get once loot is popping out of enemies by the dozens. You can ride horses, druids are back, lots of good stuff happening here. What are Diablo 4 starting classes? 3 classes were announced for Diablo 4, the Barbarian, Sorceress, and Druid. In a panel following the announcement, it was confirmed that there will be 5 total classes. Details on those aren't available yet. And then how do the online features work? So I heard that there is going to be actual multiplayer for this game, which I think is going to be extremely exciting. But BlizzCon attendees were able to get their hands on the game, and our first impression was that it's a game whose stark and desolate look is in contrast with its always online elements, which guarantee that other players will be running past as you explore it. There's no queuing or anything like that, but seeing players who are clearly on the same quest but aren't a permanent part of my world reminds me that this isn't just my adventure. If you'd like to know more about how Diablo 4's shared world works, here's our breakdown of that. The main takeaways are that dungeons will be instanced for solo or partied players, and in the overworld, you'll see more players in towns and safe areas, though there's no option to turn them off altogether, even if you're solo. World events will draw players together, and you'll be able to ride mounts to cross great distances. Difficulty can be set when you enter a dungeon while above ground. It will be scaled to your level, though there is permadeath? Oh, there is a permadeath mode. Okay. You will not be able to play offline. So that's interesting. And then there's the Diablo 4 art leak. The Diablo 4 art, I think that there's absolutely gorgeous artwork that we've seen so far for this game. It says that Diablo 4 has been an open secret for a while, and, that's interesting. And then what Blizzard's hires tell us about Diablo 4, which I did make a video on that, because they were hiring a bunch of people to be working in the Diablo universe, so I'm sure that there's going to be obviously a lot of, different stuff to discuss as far as that is concerned. What we will say is There are some hints that Blizzard are working on something very traditional. In June 2018, Blizzard started recruiting for some telling roles. We are working on a new unannounced Diablo project. Are you a skilled dungeon artist? Come work with us and together we will build something exceptional, read one post. The dungeon artists' responsibilities include being atmospheric dungeons, as you'd expect, with a focus on composition, detail, and mood, while ensuring that the gameplay space is readable. Blizzard was also looking for a technical artist to help the environment and prop teams define, create, maintain, and streamline the modeling and world-building pipeline and processes to bring to life the world of Sanctuary. So, guys, overall, at the bottom of this, it says I wouldn't make any guesses about a Diablo 4 release date yet. Then, instead, let's speculate about what Blizzard could do next with the Diablo series. So, obviously, there hasn't been an official release date. It's probably pretty far off. I'd say, kind of like with Overwatch 2, probably at least a couple of years away. But that being said, I am very excited about Diablo 4. I think it's going to be pretty good. Just from the cinematics alone, man, it looks like a dark, intense type of game. Whereas Diablo 3, it didn't really feel like that. And I know a lot of other people in the community didn't really feel that way. That they did versus the first couple of Diablo games. So maybe this is a real return back to the Diablo franchise. We'll have to see, guys. I'm excited about it. Let me know what you guys think down below about this game. And next, guys, let's talk about World of Warcraft Shadowlands. That's something that I've been wanting to, talk about a little bit, even though I'm not super, acclimated and, familiar with everything regarding World of Warcraft. Let's talk about it. So guys, once again, from PC Gamer, Steven Mesner is the one who wrote this, everything that we know about World of Warcraft Shadowlands. And I want to give you guys my take, at least on the cinematic trailer, at least. The cinematic trailer, guys, was awesome. I mean, it's another one of those just great trailers. It looks really, you see the lore, I think it was the Lich King that you see there. I mean, just really cool looking cinematics all the way around from Diablo 4 to Overwatch 2 as well as World of Warcraft. Really cool stuff, I'm not going to lie. And this is another one that I'm excited to kind of see. The thing about World of Warcraft that always kept me from actually playing it, for a long time, was really that you had to play them kind of in order. You couldn't just kind of pick up just World of Warcraft Shadowlands, for example, and start there. You've got to start from the very beginning and move your way to where they are at this point, which is now Shadowlands. So, World of Warcraft Shadowlands was announced at Blizzcon, and as predicted, will take players to an alternate dimension of death and decay as they try to stop Sylvanas from wielding the powers of death to destroy Azeroth. Don't you just hate it when that happens? A new expansion means sweeping changes to World of Warcraft, and Shadowlands promises to be one of the most transformative expansions in years. There's a lot to cover and details are still emerging, but consider this your one-stop source for all the news about World of Warcraft Shadowlands. What is World of Warcraft Shadowlands' release date? We don't have a specific date, but game director Ion Hazakostas confirmed it would release in 2020. Given that most expansions tend to launch around July and August, I think it's safe bet that Shadowlands will follow suit and arrive sometime in the summer of 2020. It is also available for pre-order right now, so that's very exciting as well. What's the premise for World of Warcraft Shadowlands? Taking place immediately after the events of Battle for Azeroth, which still has one major update to go, World of Warcraft Shadowlands sees players adventure to the land of the dead after Sylvanas destroys the Helm of Domination and sunders the barrier between Azeroth and the Shadowlands, WoW's version of an afterlife. To stop Sylvanas, players have to venture into the Shadowlands and help restore order to the various factions that live there. As game director Ion Hazakostas says, the Shadowlands is supposed to be a well-oiled machine where dead souls are judged by their deeds and sent to different realms. But Sylvanas and her mysterious partner, the Jailer, have broken that cycle and are now funneling all perished souls into the Maw, a terrible, inescapable realm reserved for only the most horrific and evil of monsters. It's not clear what Sylvanas aims to do, but it can't be good, so players have to ally with different covenants found in the Shadowlands and restore balance. So this is really Exciting, guys. I mean, you can see how the story is kind of evolving over the years. It's just crazy thinking how long World of Warcraft has been going on. It's quite remarkable. But the new zones, WoW Shadowlands introduces several new zones. 4 of them will be leveling zones that players will journey through in a set order. There is also a new central player hub called Oribus, and a max level endgame zone called the Maw. Here's a quick overview of each leveling zone. So you've got the Bastion, I believe it's what's called, and then we have these World of Warcraft Shadowlands Covenants. One of the biggest new features in Shadowlands is Covenants. Each zone you adventure to is ruled by a faction like the Kyrian or Night Fae, who each have a specific purpose in the afterlife. As you assist each faction, they'll reward you with faction-specific gear and 2 special abilities, one that's specific to your class and 1 universal ability. Once you complete the main campaign and reach the new level cap, you'll choose 1 covenant to align with. This unlocks those faction-specific abilities permanently, along with a specific armor set. Choosing a covenant will unlock a long quest that will comprise much of Shadowlands' endgame. You can think of covenants kind of like Legion's Order halls. Covenants also unlock an endgame progression system called Soul Binding that we don't have much info on currently. Here's an example of some Covenant-specific rewards. So you can kind of see here some of the rewards that you get as far as Covenant-specific. And then you've got the Shadowlands endgame and dungeons. Like every expansion, Shadowlands will add 8 new dungeons at launch, with a new raid to unlock soon after. 4 of those dungeons will be unlocked while leveling, and an additional 4 will be unlocked after reaching the level cap. Shadowlands' second biggest feature is Torghast, Tower of the Damned. As we already reported, Torghast is an endless dungeon that you can explore either alone or with a party of 4 other players. Hazakostas said Torghast is directly inspired by the roguelike genre, meaning it's highly randomized and changes each time you enter it. Like any good roguelike, you'll also gain wild new abilities like change each time you enter Torghast, and the dungeon should provide a mighty difficult challenge for all players. That's pretty cool. In addition to Torghast, players will also explore the Maw, a max-level zone Hazakostas said was inspired by how challenging WoW Classic is. Endgame players can expect monsters and quests that put up a stiff challenge and likely require grouping with strangers in order to survive. The level cap is being squished to 60. Instead of leveling to 130, Blizzard is condensing World of Warcraft's character levels so that current level 120 characters will be level 50, and the new level cap will be 60 when Shadowlands launches next year. That's actually good news because WoW's leveling experience was painfully long and too spread out. With this new leveling squish, each level you gain will guarantee new skills and abilities. What's more, new characters will start at level 1 in a brand new starter zone designed to better showcase WoW's combat and questing. Once you reach level 10, you can then choose any expansion to jump into, which will take you all the way to level 50 where you can begin Shadowlands. That's right, you can now experience the entirety of Mists of Pandaria's story instead of quickly out-leveling it and having to move on. So that's really cool, guys. I think like with all the levels, guys, it's such a grind for people that I think them kind of shrinking it a little bit is a little bit better, or kind of lowering the amount of levels. Now, maybe it takes a lot longer to rank up on those levels. It's hard to say. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. But there's improved character customization and Death Knights available to all races. So you got Shadowlands will also introduce a variety of new characters, customization options, including human faces that better represent ethnic minorities instead of just different skin tones. Each race will have extra options like tattoos and hairstyles to further differentiate how you look from other players. So that's really cool. Look at that. Just getting very detailed. I love it. As a special surprise, Hazacostas also revealed that every race can now play the Death Knight class. Originally, this was locked to races that were available when Wrath of the Lich King first launched, but now all allied races and Pandarians can play as Death Knights. So that's pretty sick. And those are just some of the biggest features coming to World of Warcraft Shadowlands. So that being said, guys, once again, another game. Like I said, this was probably one of the biggest BlizzCons we've ever had as far as announcements are concerned. World of Warcraft Shadowlands, Diablo 4, Overwatch 2. You're talking, a new co-op commander for StarCraft. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that they were announcing here. I mean, obviously the three big ones was Overwatch 2, Diablo 4, and World of Warcraft Shadowlands. I can't really tell you which one I'm most excited about. I probably would say I'm the most excited for Diablo 4, just because of the graphics and such. But, I mean, I would say probably Shadowlands is close behind that. I got to get into World of Warcraft, guys. It's been one of those games that I've wanted to get into, but it's been very tedious for me because it's just like there's so many expansions. You got to start from the very beginning to get to the next one, to get to the next one. There's just so many, and you got to play them basically in order. That's the only thing that's kind of held me back from doing it. But nonetheless, let me know what you guys think about Shadowlands as a whole, and I'll definitely try to keep you guys posted as far as when new information comes up. So the next thing I want to talk about, guys, is the big winners, in my opinion, from the weekend of BlizzCon 2019. Obviously, Hearthstone had its first female winner, grand champion. Congratulations to her. That's absolutely huge. And I think it's great. You got that representation of a female gamer that absolutely just balled out and won, the Hearthstone, championships. That's amazing. The big ones for me, obviously also being USA winning in the World Cup. Like, congratulations, guys. Thank you. Someone was able to take down South Korea. That is absolutely awesome. Congratulations to Team USA on winning the Overwatch World Cup. That was incredible, and I was really excited to see that happen. That was really reassuring to see that somebody could, beat South Korea. That was huge. Also, though, was Dark, guys. Dark winning it all, man. He absolutely dominated in StarCraft 2, dominated the competition, and really is now putting himself up there in the conversation of greatest of all time when it comes to StarCraft 2. And obviously, guys, as I've said, said earlier, when it comes to the top players, I had Life and Cyril up there. And Life always was kind of a little bit higher for me than Cyril, just because he made it to 2 BlizzCon grand finals, which BlizzCon is like the Super Bowl of StarCraft, okay? And so he made it to 2 of them. He won one of them. But now, with Cyril, he made it to 1 BlizzCon final last year and won. So he was gaining on Life. And I think Life's, as I said, Life's, reputation and his legacy is very much so tarnished, I believe, because of the match-fixing scandal. But there's another guy. There's a guy called Dark who is now rising when it comes to the StarCraft 2, the Mount Rushmore of StarCraft 2. This is a guy who has now been to, just like Life, has been to 2 BlizzCon finals and has won one and lost one just like Life. So now I believe that Dark and Cyril are now on a mission to become the greatest ever. I believe, guys, whoever gets to 2 championships, gets to 2 BlizzCon titles first, is going to be considered the GOAT until someone else passes them, whether that be, tying them or getting to 3, whatever the case might be, because no one has ever won more than 1. So I'm looking at Dark right now as this guy is now up there with Cyril in Life, and there's no debate about it. I mean, he is absolutely, he destroyed the competition. He wanted to prove that he was the best in the world and that he's an absolute force to be reckoned with. He absolutely did that, guys. Dark is up there now on Mount Rushmore of StarCraft 2, and there's no debate about it. And I think that there's going to be a real, I think the narratives going into next year are, who is the greatest all time? And I think now Dark and Cyril, there's a real conversation now. Which one of them is going to get that title of GOAT? I think that's the big thing right now, because Dark's been there twice. Cyril's been there once, okay? And they've both won one time. A grand final between Cyril and Dark would be absolutely historic, in my opinion. We got to build that into next year, guys. A Dark versus Cyril grand final at BlizzCon. Oh, man, the narratives around that would be absolutely intense. Now, what I will say, though, guys, is that Dark, I believe, a lot of people are trying to say that if Dark and Cyril would have met in the final at BlizzCon, that Cyril would have beat him. And it would have been, a lot closer. And I actually disagree. I think Dark was on another level this entire tournament. I believe that he would have still beat Cyril. I think it would have been close, right? I think it would have gone to a game 7, which of course that grand final goes to best of 7. I think it would have went to 7 games. But I believe that Dark still would have won. But you guys will definitely have to let me know what you guys think about that. Who do you guys think is the greatest StarCraft player of all time? I've given you guys my thoughts, and I think the narratives moving into 2020 are huge. But I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the 8 Below Show. And if you guys did, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, stay positive, and as always, I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.